U.S. President Donald Trump has urged everyone involved in efforts to end the Gaza war to move fast as mediators are set to meet in Egypt on Monday for indirect peace talks between Hamas and Israel.
Yeah, we're going to very quickly. We had some very good meetings. The countries of the world, a lot of the countries surrounding Israel, frankly, Muslim, Arab, and many others have had great meetings with Hamas, and it looks like it's working. So we'll wait for a little while, see how it all turns out.
When will the administration begin firing?
I think it'll work very quickly. I think it's going to go very quickly. The meetings seem to be very good. We'll find out. We'll let you know soon.
The talks come after Hamas agreed to some parts of U.S.'s 20-point peace plan, including freeing hostages in exchange for Palestinians held in Israeli jails. The group's response did not mention key demands of its disarmament, but Al Arabiya, citing sources, said the group has agreed to hand over weapons under international supervision. In a post on social media earlier, Trump said the talks had been very successful and that the first phase should be completed this week. Foreign ministers from several countries, including Egypt, said the talks at the Egyptian resort town of Sharm el-Sheikh were a real opportunity to achieve a sustainable ceasefire. A senior Hamas official told AFP on condition of anonymity that the Palestinian group that is very keen to reach an agreement to end the war and immediately begin the prisoner exchange process in accordance with the field conditions. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu expressed hope to announce the release of hostages in the coming days. Netanyahu ordered the departure of the Israeli delegation on Monday for the critical talks. A Hamas delegation headed by chief negotiator Khalil al-Hayya, one of the targets of an Israeli assassination attempt in Doha last month, arrived in Cairo on Sunday night. U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, Trump's son-in-law Jared Kushner, and Qatari Foreign Minister Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdulrahman Al Thani will also attend. Seal the deal chants reverberated in Jerusalem as hundreds continued their protests outside the private residence of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. They also sent out a strong message to Ron Dremer, Israel's chief negotiator. A remembrance ceremony was held outside the Israeli embassy in Athens to mark the victims of the October 7th Hamas attack, while elsewhere pro-Palestinian protests rallied in front of the Greek parliament to support an end to the war. Pro-Palestinian protests were also held in parts of Serbia, UK, among others. This while Israeli strikes continued in Gaza, despite Trump, as well as U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio telling the country to immediately stop bombing the Strip. Marco Rubio said, quote, "You can't release hostages in the middle of strikes, so the strikes will have to stop." Israeli government spokesperson told reporters on Sunday that while certain bombings have actually stopped inside of the Gaza Strip, there is no ceasefire in place at this point in time. Gaza's Civil Defense Agency said Israeli attacks killed at least 20 people across the territory on Sunday, 13 of them in Gaza City. Meanwhile, the first 21 of the 49 Spanish activists who were part of the Gaza Aid flotilla intercepted earlier this week landed at Madrid airport, where they reported having been mistreated and subject to humiliating treatment during their detention. All right, to talk more about this, joining us live on the broadcast is Chris Doyle, Director of Council for Arab-British Understanding and the current lead spokesperson for CABU. Thank you so much for joining us on WION. What are your thoughts about a possible ceasefire and America's 20-point plan moving forward? It seems the next 24 to 48 hours are going to be very crucial.
If you're a Palestinian living in Gaza, you need a ceasefire right now. You talk to Palestinians there and they talk about preferring to die by bombs and not by starvation or disease. They want a quick and easy death. They see no way out of this. So the faint possibility that we could get to a ceasefire has now become a more real one. And they will be on tenterhooks. And as indeed will be, of course, the hostages, the families of the hostages, the Israeli hostages, as well as the Palestinian detainees who are scheduled for release as well, those who have been held without trial, without due process. So, of course, one has to be hopeful that this can happen, and hopeful also that you're going to get aid in at scale into Gaza because of the ever-spreading famine, the malnourishment, the starvation that is afflicting the civilian population. All of this, makes these talks in Cairo extremely important. But unfortunately, there's no trust between these sides, and you have the United States as a broker, not seen as an honest broker by the Palestinian sides and some countries in the Arab world. So for all the talk, there are also reasons as to why this may break down. Hamas, for example, is not fully publicly committed to decommissioning its arms. That may well be a problem. Israel has not defined a timescale for its redeployment, let alone its full withdrawal from Gaza. But then once you move past these stages, once you get past the ceasefire and the aid in and the releases, I think this is where it becomes very deeply problematic for any Palestinian, because they would be signing up to, if they agreed to the Trump 20-point plan, to a future in Gaza that has no Palestinian agency. They weren't involved in negotiating this and drafting these points, and they won't be involved in being the sovereign rulers in charge of their destiny within Gaza. Indeed, even as part of a Palestinian state, which is seen in these proposals as a very far off possibility at some indeterminate point in the future.
And what about Hamas? How much can Hamas be trusted moving forward? We're approaching the anniversary of the October 7th attacks. On the one hand, Hamas branding itself as an armed resistance movement, being asked to lay down its arms. Apparently, according to one report, it's agreed to do so somewhat. But as you mentioned, it's such a long way to even realizing that on the one hand, and also who is Israel and the United States really negotiating with?
Susan, they're not negotiating with Palestinians, they're negotiating between each other. It's a Netanyahu-Trump plan that has been drawn up after protracted talks in Washington, and it's been presented to Hamas as a diktat. It's a surrender or die proposal. Essentially, Donald Trump has been very clear that if Hamas ultimately refuses this and rejects it, then Israel will continue to visit hell on Gaza in the way that it has been, and there won't be any United States government that's going to stop them from doing so. So Hamas has very few options, really. It has obviously, after 2 years of really major Israeli attacks and bombing, been crippled militarily. It is not the force that it once was a couple of years ago. Many of his fighters have been killed off, of course, its leadership as well decapitated. So it doesn't have many cards to play. One of Hamas's challenges will be that once they release those hostages and the bodies, once they've even found them, if they can, then they have no other cards. And what is there to stop Netanyahu recommencing Israeli strikes? That's really quite a possibility. So Hamas probably sees this as a chance to withdraw for the moment, to quit Gaza in terms of its leadership at least, give up what remaining arms it has, and live to fight another day on other battlefields and in other ways, because I think its future in Gaza is clearly very limited.
Okay, well, thank you so much for that thorough analysis, Chris Doyle, joining us live this morning. I look forward to speaking to you again very soon.
Thank you very much.
For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.